The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
60 years ago today, Sandy Koufax not only threw the fourth no-hitter of his career, it was a perfect game, and a game that has been called the best pitched game of all time. And it came accompanied by a broadcast by Vin Scully that is considered to be the best baseball broadcast of all time. It is the perfect storm which came together on this date in 1965, and we have some of the audio from that. And amazingly, Sandy Koufax giving some recollections in an interview with Sweeney Murdy of MLB.com, which I will go through coming up later in the show. Just a remarkable day, which is even too old for me to remember, but I love the history of sports, and I love the history of Sandy Koufax and baseball, and we'll have some fun talking about that later in the show. There is football to get to, and there is another amazing comeback. Sorry, these games are on too late. I'll be up till the end on Thursday night when the Commanders play in Green Bay, but you just can't do this on a regular basis. At least I can't, and operate on the clock that I live on where I'm up very early in the morning. But once again, we had a game which looked like it was in hand, and what do you know? The other team came back and flipped the script and won the game, which is what happened last night in Chicago. As you had a rookie quarterback making his first start, J.J. McCarthy started slowly, threw a pick six, but in the fourth quarter, he did what great quarterbacks are supposed to do, and threw for 2 touchdowns and ran for another, and becomes the first rookie quarterback to do that in his debut, to get 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, as they came back to win 27-24. Now, you got to be thinking about Ben Johnson, the coach of the Bears, because in January of 2024, Mitch Rales and Josh Harris, the 2 primary owners of the Commanders, were on a plane on their way to talk to Ben Johnson in Detroit about becoming the next coach of the Commanders. They had not yet decided on Dan Quinn. Now, maybe he was in the mix, and Quinn might have gotten the job anyway, but Ben Johnson never gave him the chance while they were in the air. And they saw this on Twitter while they were flying. Ben Johnson put out there, I'm going to stay another year at Detroit. Oh, okay. Well, Aaron Glenn was the defensive coordinator. They were going to talk to him, too. It may have been part of the Rooney Rule. Maybe they were serious about hiring him, but they ultimately went with Dan Quinn. Looks like things worked out pretty well. But if you're Ben Johnson, you're looking around now and going, that Washington situation looks really good. And they have a quarterback who was Rookie of the Year, deservedly so, and at least in the opening game of this season, hasn't taken the step back that some think he might, the sophomore slump. A lot of games left to play, 16 to go, so we don't know what's going to happen. But you got yourself in a situation where you're trying to resuscitate already a damaged quarterback who's gone through an offensive coordinator and a head coach with stories about, his indifference to what Jaden Daniels embraces, the grind, getting there at 5 o'clock in the morning. There was even a part of the story where they talked about the Bears considering buying that virtual reality headset that Jaden Daniels uses to prepare for the games. And they said, even if we buy it, we don't think he's going to use it. And he wasn't terrible last night, got off to a really good start, but at the end of the game was outperformed by a player making his first NFL start. Remember, J.J. McCarthy was a high draft pick last year, but got hurt in the preseason, didn't play a game, and now is on his way, at least from game one, to becoming yet another one of these young quarterbacks who come out of college and are ready to play in the NFL for a variety of reasons. One, they stay longer. In some cases, they go to 2 and 3 schools. And as Steve Young pointed out last week, and others have said this as well, the pro game right now is very similar to the college game. So the adjustment level is different. And what RG3 was given in 2012 is now kind of the norm in the NFL. Like the Shanahans were out in front. They said, okay, here's a guy, never had a playbook in college. doesn't play with the conventional style. We got to get a system in place that makes him comfortable right away, and as time goes on, we'll develop him into a pocket passer. Well, because of RG3's narcissism and because of the fact that he got really insecure about the fact that they took Kirk Cousins in the same draft and other things added up, and then there was this narrative, he blew out his knee in the Seattle playoff game and was never the same. That's not as big a thing as people might think. It was more about him not embracing the grind, making mistakes, throwing his teammates under the bus. And at one point, Jay Gruden says he doesn't even know when to make a 7-step drop versus a 5-step drop. He's got to be the one that knows what the hell he's doing out there. Not in those words, but that was paraphrasing what he said. And so this thing where, we all saw him blow out his knee in Seattle and he was never the same. No, that wasn't it. He needed to learn how to play the position and never really did. But anyway, what we have seen from Jaden Daniels is he has a complete understanding of what it takes to be a great quarterback in this league, both physically and mentally. And there has to be some doubts that will now linger until he proves it. Now, it's not that Caleb Williams has been bad in any way. I mean, he is going to be a starting quarterback in this league for probably a long time. The question is, will he develop into an elite-level quarterback? Will he reach that top 5, top 6 status that Jaden is already in after 1 year? Doesn't look like it now, but, this is his first season with Ben Johnson. So let's see what develops over the course of the season. Let's see where he is in December versus now. But from last night, he was outperformed by essentially a rookie making his first NFL start. And again, you had the point of the game, much like the night before in Buffalo, where it's fourth quarter, looks like it's over. It looks like the Bears are going to take care of business. They're up 11 points. And then, boom, back come J.J. McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings. Joe Buck and Troy Aikman always talk to Scott Van Pelt after Monday night games, and this was their assessment of how the script flipped.
Rare is it that you have a game that just felt like it was so one-sided and then it just flipped. And it flipped, like Lisa said, with J.J. McCarthy after the pick 6. But it flipped. It's easy to point to that, but it flipped, Troy, when the offensive line took over and the Vikings were able to run the ball, which then gave J.J. McCarthy a chance. Prior to that, he just didn't have a chance.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think what happens, and J.J. McCarthy has been in some big games, and he understands it, that it's not always going to go in your favor, and he hung in there as you would hope that he would do, but still. Kevin O'Connell did a nice job. Like Joe said, they got the running game going. They had some good fortune along the way. The defense made some stops. It was a collective effort. But for the young quarterback to hang in there like he did, that was an impressive night.
Troy, our guy Swag, Marcus Spears asked you on Countdown, will there be a moment when you see it's something that tells you, okay, the light's coming on, it's slowing down, it clicked, and how much, as you alluded to and Joe mentioned, the running game, that gave him the time to use play action, but was there a moment that you think, all right, everything's starting to slow down for this young man?
Not so much a play, because even the pick 6 obviously was a devastating blow to their chances of winning this football game. But when they got the running game going, you saw him start to at least slow down a little bit and then start delivering the football and getting the ball down the field to Justin Jefferson, and some of the throws that he was able to make. Of course, Aaron Jones there for the touchdown, but it was really not until the fourth quarter that I think he would tell you that he really got comfortable with the pocket, and the running game will do that, and it's why this team, they tried to upgrade that position, which they did. They need more of a running game for a lot of reasons, one of which is being the fact that he is just a second-year player making his first NFL start, but if you're going to compete in the NFC North, you better be physical up front, so there was a lot that went into that decision.
Joe, I mentioned on Countdown that I believe Chicago is not a good sports town. It's a great sports town. And as this game ends and you're calling the last moments of it, boos are raining down here in Soldier Field. It started as well as it possibly could. A drive for a touchdown on their first drive. They were one of 3 teams last year that didn't have one. And it started that way and it ends this way. What's your sense of what Chicago, where they go after this opening game that started with such promise and ends with yet another home loss, now 6 in a row going back to last year?
I don't want to speak on behalf of a city, but I think that this feels different. This feels like, okay, yeah, they lost the game, Caleb Williams looked like a more poised quarterback. They've got Ben Johnson. This is the start. And I think Bears fans think, and I think rightfully so, that this is the beginning of something exciting with the Chicago Bears. It wasn't going to be in 1 week. It's going to be a chunk of the season, maybe an entire season, but they have to know coming out of this 2025 season that they've got their head coach. They know that. But do they have their quarterback? And I think tonight, for the most part, we saw an improved Caleb Williams who started 10 for 10. There was a lot of good stuff going on. They had the game in their hand, and then they had the penalty on the intentional grounding. They had a holding call, and all of a sudden they're backed up, and the thing flipped. But I don't think Bears fans are going to give up on this new plan.
No, nor should they. And they're telling me we got to go. I'm just interested, Troy, as a quick thought. Do you share that sentiment that, like, it ends, obviously, no one wanted it to be a loss, but there's enough positives in there to build moving forward?
I do. I do. I think they've got the right staff, and there's a lot of optimism right now. It looked good for a while. This is going to be a tough loss, of course, but I do think this is different. I think fans will feel different, even though this is a devastating loss as they've experienced at other times. Yeah, I would agree with what Joe said.
Yeah, I would think they would give it every opportunity to succeed. Caleb Williams, number 1 pick, when he came along, he was said to be a generational quarterback. But we've seen Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. Now, he looked good in week 1, didn't have a great year last year, played well the year before, but he was also supposed to be a generational quarterback and may ultimately be one. But the development is taking time. And what we've been seeing from Jaden Daniels has been a rare treat. But as a longtime fan of this team that's been looking for that type of quarterback really since Joe Theismann, even though they won a Super Bowl with Mark Rippon, it's deserved. Come on. Now, the Bears have been worse. Bears can't pick a quarterback to save their life. But they're going to give this an opportunity. And what Buck said about, by the end of the year, they hope to know. Yeah, because a year from the end of this season, they're going to be in the same boat that the Commanders are with Jaden Daniels. And that's going to be a no-brainer. They're going to start negotiating a long-term contract right away. The Bears, they may say, because they're, got him under control for the next 3 years after this, including the fifth-year option, they may say after next year, well, we need to see another year. And they may take it down to going into that fifth-year option before they make a decision whether to extend him, maybe trade him, who knows. But we're only 1 game into season number 2. So, as we say in this business a lot, let's see how it all plays out. Some stuff from Dan Quinn yesterday, the usual Monday news conference. Things are compressed this week because they're playing a game on Thursday night. It means they got to fly to Green Bay tomorrow. But Quinn held his conference call yesterday with reporters. Some interesting things to pick out of that. Number 1, Deebo Samuel, maybe the most valuable offensive player in the game on Sunday, 7 catches, 77 yards, and the 19-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter, which put the game out of reach. He is also returning kicks. And the question came up, well, do you think maybe he's a little bit too valuable to be a kick returner?
It's definitely different than it was, just 2 years ago. They're closer. It's different. It's a more effective way, I think, with the kick and the kick returns. We're still learning it and growing, but I do feel like he's the type of person that can be a game breaker at it.
So he's looking at it, it's the juice being worth the squeezing. Now, God forbid he gets hurt on a kickoff return, then everybody gets up in arms. You shouldn't waste him on something like that. And maybe they may look at it because, as Quinn says, they're still learning. They may reach a point where they go, we're really not getting the kind of returns that we're hoping for with him, and we don't want to risk him getting hurt because of his great value as such a dual threat on the field as a runner and a receiver. But for now, he's got somebody. If he breaks it for a touchdown on one of these, well, that's a big step in the game. How many times, I'm sure it happens, and I don't know the numbers, but it just would seem like anecdotally, if you return a kick for a touchdown, you've got a much greater percentage chance of winning the game. As for the touchdown, after they've had a chance, and this is always what coaches like to say, I need to look at the tape. They used to say, I need to look at the film, but they looked at the tape, and this was Dan Quinn kind of celebrating what they did with Debo on the touchdown run and the fact that he had great blocking in front of him, including the newly acquired Laramie Tunsil leading the way.
I would definitely want Laramie being my bodyguard, leading the way out front onto that play. You saw Biotic out. I think it might have been Bill out in front. But that's the type of things that, can make difficult to defend, because defending the wide parts of the field, Nikki, as well as down the field shots, that's what makes defending an offense difficult when it's, laterally and, down the field. So to be able to get the edge, there's some certain things you got to do. I think it was a good, down block by Bates, I'm sure, to, pin a defensive end, inside. So having the different schemes, and he just has a unique way about him. And we have a couple players that have some uniqueness to them. I thought, Eckler has some of that uniqueness when he gets the ball and can make things happen, but it was very cool to see.
Number 3 from Quinn, and this is about Terry McLaurin, who didn't participate at all in training camp, didn't play in any of the preseason games, didn't go to mini camp, the whole thing. He caught 2 passes for 27 yards. Now, there was a question as to how much he was going to play. If you look at the snap count, he played about half the snaps. So he's still, rounding himself in shape, but thank God there's no injury. He's not listed on the injury report. No hamstring or anything like that. He comes out of this healthy, which is the main thing. And even though it's only 2 catches for 27 yards, Quinn is more than satisfied right now.
It's good to see Terry look comfortable and back in his normal routine, and he was about as close to full as you can get. And so it was really cool to see him back into it. We didn't get to hit it on the big one, which I thought would have just lit the place on fire, to have an 80-yarder, but we didn't hit it, and I thought we were just off on a couple of plays that, we could have broke some, and we didn't, so we got work to do.
Yeah, and it looked to me anyway, that it was not on Terry, and that, again, comes from, I think, not participating in the preseason much. I mean, Jaden Daniels didn't throw a pass in the preseason, and Quinn even admitted that Sunday. And in fact, let me play this. This was Tom Lavero asking this question at the news conference after the game on Sunday, and Quinn is not, covering up for it. He's saying, yeah, I mean, you do see early in the season probably not the sharpness that you want because of lack of participation by the starters.
You talk about the things that you need to clean up.
Yep.
Does the option no longer exist in this game to clean those things up with starters in preseason football?
Meaning like getting more turns and reps?
Yeah.
Yeah, it still exists. I think that's fair, to get more turns, and how do you balance back and forth. I thought the penalties went down and then they climbed back up again today. But, yeah, it's definitely, a factor into it.
Coach, you mentioned
sometimes just the health and the injuries factor in it too during training camp. But, yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, so he's agreeing with Tom that if they were participating more in the preseason, you might see a sharper beginning. But again, you're playing 17 games. You're not playing to play your best football in September. You want to be playing your best football in January and hopefully into February. So, I don't think there's really any criticism to be made. It's just an observation of why the football isn't as sharp in the early part of the season. And, it's not like people are shying away from watching the games. Ratings are through the roof. And you just get a feel, by the way. I was talking to John Matthews about this, news director at WML this morning, and he said you just get a different feel around football season. Everybody's got more to talk about. It's just different. Now, I don't think you should be playing professional football when we get into June, but it is such a money machine, and there's so much more interest in it than any other sport. They're going to try and squeeze every dollar out of it that you can. One more thing from Quinn, and this was about the fact that he's going to be facing a player who he used to coach, and that's Micah Parsons. He had him in Dallas, and there was even some trickling out. Not that this trade was going to happen, but there was even things trickling out like, oh yeah, Parsons really wants to play for Dan Quinn again. Like he would love to wind up in Washington. He's saying all the right things about Green Bay, very happy to be there. But this was Quinn yesterday on Micah Parsons, who he once coached in Dallas, and last year faced him twice. And he was such a factor that they were worried about Jaden Daniels getting hurt in the last game of the season, so they took him out in the second half and put Marcus Mariota in. That's the kind of force that he is. Here's Quinn on Micah and the fact that Dallas did, in fact, trade him.
I was surprised that he was traded, and I had an absolute blast coaching him. So he brings out the mad scientist in you to see, all right, what if he was here and how would you feature him and what about over here? He was a player that could learn, things really quickly. But I was surprised, that he went, outside the division, I would say.
And what is the toughest thing about preparing for him, especially on a short week?
Speed. Like he's, in Dallas, he was one of our fastest players. So that's the hardest thing to simulate, for an offensive tackle. To see the first couple, 2 or 3 steps, it's not at a speed that's you can simulate in a practice rep. So that would be like early on. I think there's been some rushes that he could surprise some people if you haven't faced him, knowing that he can really jump off the ball.
So Washington, a 3.5-point underdog coming up on Thursday night. We'll talk more about the game. In fact, Al Michaels, who is going to call the game on Prime, was on the Rich Eisen show yesterday. Thoughts on Jaden, thoughts on the Commanders, thoughts on the Packers, and more. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Al Michaels, now in his 80s, raring to go for another football season, as Prime will have the game on Thursday night with Commanders going to Green Bay. And, he... So his enthusiasm at the end of big games has rankled some, and anybody who reaches his age is bound to have something taken off his fastball. But Prime is still paying him a lot of money. Probably he's in the $1 million a game range. And, he has said that he'll know it's time to retire. I don't know if he'll know that. But, in his 80s, he's still doing this. And we'll talk about this later in the show, Tony Kornheiser, who's 77, and Mike Wilbon, who's about to turn 67, they've just re-upped for 3 more years on PTI. So, what used to be an age 65 when you're over the hill and done, not so much anymore. And Al's still doing his thing for Prime. But and they did this interview yesterday before last night's comeback by the Vikings. This was the miraculous comeback that the Bills had against the Ravens, and Al has called his share of those games, and he was asked by Eisen to describe the biggest one that he can remember calling, and this was a very famous game played on Monday Night Football in 2000.
Well, I go back to the 2000 game in the Meadowlands, the Miracle at the Meadowlands.
Oh yeah,
when Miami led the Jets 31-7. Arnold Schwarzenegger came into the booth in the third quarter. I'm doing the game with Dennis Miller and Dan Fouts. And Arnold came in with Miami leading by at least 3 touchdowns. And he says, Wayne Corbett will terminate the Dolphins. And we're going, hey, don't you know what the score is? So Arnold leaves. And, of course, that's the night that the Jets mount this gigantic comeback. They tie it at 31. But Jay Fiedler then leads Miami down the field. They lead 38-31. And then we get to overtime because Vinny Testaverde goes back to pass, and hits Jumbo Elliott from your alma mater, who'd been in the league for like 11 years at that point, on a tackle eligible for a touchdown to tie the game and go into overtime. That's, to me, Dennis Miller's greatest line ever, though, because I call the play, and Testaverde back to pass. He hits Jumbo Elliott for a touchdown. He's been in the league 11 years. It's his first touchdown. It's his first catch. Crowd's going wild. Dennis goes, well, you couldn't keep him down forever. So
I remember that. That was in between. That was the off day in the Subway World Series between the Yankees and the Mets.
Correct. Exactly
right. That
right.
was the Monday night between games 2 and 3 of the Yankees-Mets in New York City. It was an amazing time for sports.
Miracle at the Meadowlands. So that would stand out as probably the most dramatic game I was a part of.
Not only the Dennis Miller call, but on the Sports Center highlights, Steve Levy, working that night, had a great line. Now, you have to remember, this was not far removed from the time where Buddy Ryan cut Chris Carter from the Philadelphia Eagles, and it was not known at the time, and Carter said that Buddy saved his life. He had a drug problem, And Buddy Ryan had to get rid of him, and people said, well, he's a top receiver. What are you doing? And he says, all this guy does is catch touchdowns. That's typical Buddy Ryan sarcasm. So Levy, in doing the highlights and the Jumbo Elliott catch, which was the first catch of his career and also a touchdown, says, all this guy does is catch touchdowns. So that was kind of funny. And I guess you have to put it in context of the time to really get the whole thing. This is part 2 from the Al Michaels conversation yesterday on the Eisen Show, which you can hear now on ESPN 630. And this was about Jaden Daniels and the supposed trash talking that he did with Brian Burns during the game on Sunday. Burns got him twice. Jaden was sacked 3 times, and Burns got him both times. But Washington won the game, most importantly. And afterwards, the reporters are talking to Brian Burns in the locker room, and he hints at, well, this guy's a trash talker. Now, nobody I know of has ever said that in the full season that Jaden's been the quarterback here and the one game. But listen as he starts to talk, and he later reveals that he did something that Andrew Luck used to do. That Andrew Luck, when he first came in the league as the next great quarterback, like Mel Kiper saying he's Peyton Manning with athleticism. He was that good. And I've heard Zach Ertz say this because he played with Andrew Luck in college at Stanford, and he said Jaden is much like him. And what Jaden was trying to do was get in Brian Burns' head during the game, not trash talking him, but say, hey, how you doing? Like having a conversation. And Luck used to do the same thing. He'd get slammed to the ground and he'd say, hey, nice hit there. Get inside their head. So this is Burns describing first that he's kind of not happy that Jaden's a trash talker, but he's not really talking trash.
Didn't learn anything new about Jaden Daniels today, did you, that you didn't know?
You talk a lot. Cool dude, but he talk a lot. I don't want to talk to you.
Thanks, Bart.
It's like shooting at Nah, he just be talking like this. Hey, buddy, I don't want to talk to you. I'll talk to you after the game, bro. I'll talk to you after the game, man.
Smart young man.
Yeah, he's a smart guy. That's he's trying to get in my head, make me feel like we're friends now.
That's
right. Yeah. He's the whole package. He really is.
Just like, hey, how you doing? He's like, no, I don't want to be your friend.
No, it's perfect.
He's beyond his years, it seems like,
It does, for sure, yeah. And you can tell, he's got what it takes him, at least when you watch him and you look at him, he looks confident, he looks poised, he looks in control. You can tell he has the respect of the people around him. So, he had a tremendous rookie season, off to a great start in year 2. And obviously, look, they expect gigantic things from him. Again, you have to go back, and you go back to 15 years ago in Washington, the belle of the ball, the guy who was going to take them to multiple Super Bowls over 15 years. RG3. Remember that?
Well, he blew out his knee in the playoffs, unfortunately, and that changed the entire dynamic of everything there.
It did, and it was never the same.
Well, and let's be honest, if we're telling stories, I think Dan Quinn wanted the quarterback that got drafted. The word was Mike Shanahan was not. And that's why they drafted Kirk Cousins later on in the same draft.
Exactly.
Which you rarely see until the Cleveland Browns kind of did it this year. But you rarely see multiple quarterbacks taken in the same draft. That's a different story, different day. And I think that's why Commanders fans are out of their skulls, is those days are past. Yeah. Those days are over. New owner, new coach, new GM, new quarterback, new way of going, new name, new everything.
After a tough quarter century.
Yeah. Yeah, as brutal as you can possibly
under the Snyder regime.
Yeah, and let's also recognize something, Rich. It wasn't the knee injury in the Seattle game that ended his career. It was his inability to learn how to play the game is what it was. They caught a lot of people by surprise that first year. The league adjusted, and RG3 never really adjusted. He managed to chase away Mike Shanahan by undermining him, going to the foolish owner who sided with the quarterback, not the coach. And if you look around the league, it's populated by Mike Shanahan assistants. So let's stop this narrative. Oh, he blew out his knee and it's never the same. Not the entire story of Robert Griffin III. And what we're seeing now is a totally different type of person. Maybe he's got some similar skills, but the embracing of the grind, the work, all that stuff never really happened with RG3. Last part, and this relates to the game on Thursday, Micah Parsons coming to the Packers and the comparisons of Reggie White going to Green Bay in 1993. This was the first year of free agency, and Joe Gibbs had just retired, although there might have been a chance that they could get Reggie, although they were trying to get under the salary cap, which was coming the next year. So he winds up in Green Bay. It totally transforms the franchise. Al is certainly old enough to remember all of this. And in discussing these comparisons that are now being made between how Micah Parsons has put life into the Packers in the same way that Reggie did, not quite the same.
Everybody loves to make comparisons. And, in Micah's case, he is already a star. There's no question about it. But when it comes to anointing somebody, I always tell the Bill Parcells story. I did the Hall of Fame game years and years ago. I think Jeremy Shockey had a tremendous night, and he had not played a single game. Jeremy's a rookie, comes out of college, has a phenomenal night in Canton. No, he's going to be Mark Bavaro. He's going to be Kellen Winslow. He's going to be Mike Ditka. He's going to be the greatest tight end in history.
Yes. And,
of course, a lot of the post-game press conference dealt with that. And only the way the great bard and soothsayer Bill Parcells could put it, he says, boys, just put away the anointing oil, okay? It's real simple. So, to me, we're anointing everybody. Now, in Micah's case, he's already anointed because of what he's done to this point. But we love to make comparisons. Look, the game is different than it was. There's no question in Reggie's time. And I like it. I like to look at comparisons like this as enjoy them both.
Right.
It's everything is in a different era. And why can't we, it's like saying, what's the better meal? Well, sometimes you can have two fantastic desserts, right? Enjoy them both. That's how I look at it. That's how I look at comparisons.
And just in case anyone's wondering, I've been fortunate enough to have a meal with multiple desserts. In fact, maybe the last one you and I had.
Right.
So you mean what you say. But, obviously he's not Reggie White. It's just the only comparison you can make is when Reggie showed up in Green Bay. It gave everybody a boost. It gave everyone a sense of, okay, now we can really win this thing right here. And I think I don't know. Obviously it's just one game, but you just get a sense. It was like a role reversal with Green Bay and the Lions on Sunday, where Green Bay feels like they have the Super Bowl shot and the Lions have question marks about them for their chances. That's the way I feel.
Right. And also, Jordan Love looked really good yesterday, and this bevy of receivers, and Christian Watson still hasn't played yet. I think he's on PUP. Mm-hmm. So they've got, and Jacobs didn't have the greatest day rushing until, in the fourth quarter. Their line was great, their offensive line. So, that's a real team. But, going back to Reggie, what Reggie did is not only made that team better, he changed that whole culture. Because when Reggie got sent to Green Bay or signed with Green Bay, everybody said, oh, no, Green Bay is the last place you want to go. We're sending you to Siberia. Mm-hmm. And when Reggie signed, all of a sudden, it became different. So different. He changed the whole culture up there.
Yeah, and then Favre obviously became Favre, right. And then that led to Rodgers, and now it's led to Love, and the conversation again is second season that Bart Starr won a title at age 27, same year, that same age of Favre, Rodgers, and now Jordan Love, when Favre and Rodgers won their championships.
What were you doing at 27?
I was 1 year into my ESPN tenure.
Wow.
What were you when you were 27?
I was doing the World Series on NBC.
Yeah, you were.
As the voice of the Cincinnati Reds.
Come on now.
Oh, yeah. When we were 27, it was a very good year.
That's right. Calling the World Series at age 27.
Well, in those years, if you were the team announcer and your team won the pennant, and I'm with the Big Red Machine, Bench, Rose, Morgan, Sparky Anderson, Tony Perez, when we won the playoffs, beat Pittsburgh in a dramatic ninth-inning comeback in the deciding game, I got to do the World Series with Kurt Gowdy and Tony Kubek on NBC. And I think I've told you the story. Not that I was nervous when we came on the air, but this is when the World Series was, drawing 35 million viewers. And we come on Saturday afternoon at Riverfront Stadium, and there's a single shot of Kurt. Now they're going to pull out to include me. And the only thought I had in my brain, I was trying to get rid of it, was, please, God, please, when I open my mouth, let air come out. And it did. And we were off and running.
You know who else got that shot in that same World Series? I think he's talking about 1975, which is considered to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest, World Series ever, which featured the Carlton Fisk home run in Game 6. Dick Stockton, who was not young, but youngish, and doing local for the Red Sox. I think it was local TV, not necessarily local radio, but he got his shot in the booth too. So you think about two guys who had, and Al continues to have, this incredibly long network career, and Stockton did it forever. And for many people who are growing up in the 80s, he was the soundtrack of what I think was the greatest era of the NBA, when the Lakers and the Celtics played 5 times for the championship. That he also got kind of a big boost from that. They should do that now. Just give something to the World Series, because it's really, you're getting 9 million people watching it. I mean, it's a fraction of the interest of even the NBA. Well, not a fraction, but it's not even close to what the NBA is, and the NBA is way behind football. So you think about those two guys. And if you're watching in 1975, oh, this Al Michaels guy, who is he? Dick Stockton, who is he? And within the next, 10 years, they become iconic play-by-play people on the network level. So anyway, Pardon the Interruption will celebrate 24 years next month. And there was a question until it was reported today, and I believe this is true. There's been no pushback so far from ESPN. John Ourand, who used to write for Sports Business Daily, he's local, went to Maryland, and now writes for something called Puck. He's reporting that Tony Kornheiser and Mike Wilbon have just signed 3-year contracts to continue to do the show, which means by the end of the deals, Tony will be 80 and Mike will be 70. And not only is it a show that has lasted, I believe, longer than any other sports show. Maybe Wide World of Sports lasted longer. I'm not even sure that lasted as long as Pardon the Interruption has. And the fact that it's being done by two men who are past retirement age, Tony long past retirement age, and the appetite is still there, particularly for younger audience. Around the Horn certainly benefited from being a lead-in to that show, and that lasted over 20 years. But last May, that was taken off the air, and Pardon the Interruption has endured. There have been, reports that they're going to expand it to an hour. They did an hour last week. Just to float it out there, and Tony opened the show complaining about the length of it, and then complained until the end, and which is right in character with him. He is, no one that I know ever asked me in the 14 years that I did radio with Tony, what's he really like, because he's exactly what he's like on TV. That's what makes him as good as he is on radio. The great ones do that. The personalities that they have are exactly the same as they are on and off the air. So anyway, I was thinking about how long Tony has been telling me that he's too old and they're going to get rid of him. And we started doing radio in 1992. This is when we started the other station. It was on 570. And when I was hired, I said, you might want to talk to Tony Kornheiser, because I love to read his columns. When I was in New York, I used to go across the street to Madison Square Garden and Penn Station, where they sold out of town newspapers, and you could buy the Washington Post for $1.25. Yeah, it was $1 to buy the paper here, and to get it shipped to New York to the newsstand, it was another $1. So $1.25 for a newspaper seemed exorbitant at the time, but I paid it, and I always wanted to read those Tuesday columns, the bandwagon columns during the Redskins season of 1991. So anyway, I knew about that, and I'd seen him do a little bit of local television over the years, and I thought he might have some opportunities to really develop into somebody who would be good on the air. Now, remember, I had come from New York, and I had worked with Mike and the Mad Dog. I had worked with Imus. I had worked with Howie Rose, who has gone on to an incredible play-by-play career doing the Mets, but was a very good talk show host. I had been alongside some of the and developing people like Ian Eagle, who started there as an intern. So I had been around some people who knew what they were doing and were outstanding at what they did. And we had the opportunity because of the startup of the station and the fact that we're building new studios that we had time to rehearse before we went on the air. So we did some dry runs. And the first one we did, I said to him, you can really do this. You know what you're doing here. And he said, well, it doesn't matter. He says, I'm only going to do this for 2 weeks because Lupica said it's going to hurt the column. At that time, Tony's full-time job was a columnist with the Washington Post. And he would always threaten to quit. And he would always say, I don't need this job. But in fact, he loved it, and he was great at it. And he would always say, I'm too old to do this. I'm not going to do this that long. He says, by the time you're 50, you're done. Well, now he's signed up to do it till he's 80. And I think that's been part of what has made him what he is part of the personality, the insecurity and all that he likes to show. And a lot of people who perform are insecure, so that's not unusual. But I had to laugh when I saw that at 77 years old, he's signing a 3-year contract. Wilbon is 10 years younger. Wilbon actually has a son who's a senior in high school, so not that he's going to have any trouble paying the tuition, but he's got some big expenses coming up. He's at a much different stage of life than Tony is as a grandfather and grown kids who are well on their own and all that. But I just have to laugh at that and to think that a show that is going to be hosted by two men who are considered geriatrics 3 years from now is still embraced by college students, by younger people, the audience that they want, the number of people that they want. And it was a show that Tony said when he started, because I remember we were doing radio at the time, this show was proposed, and he said, glad they're giving us a 3-year deal because it's only going to last a year. And, a show that is launched and lasts 3 years is not too bad. It came on the heels of 2 interview shows. There was the original Roy Firestone show that started in the early days of ESPN. It was one of the more popular shows because prior to that, you couldn't watch big name athletes being interviewed on a daily basis. And Firestone was based in Los Angeles, so you had a lot of stars coming through with the Dodgers and the Angels in baseball season and the Lakers and the Clippers during basketball season. And I believe at that point, either the Raiders were there or getting close to Los Angeles. The Rams were still there. So you had a lot of people, a lot of athletes, and sometimes celebrities. And then that begat the show called Up Close with Chris Connerly. And again, it was a long-form interview show. And PTI comes along and says, yeah, we're still going to do interviews, but we're going to do them 5 minutes, 5 good minutes. And one of the brilliant parts of the show that was put together by Eric Rydholm was the rundown on the side. That was a game changer, that you could be watching the show and you go, yeah, I'm really not interested in what they're talking about now, but I see the next segment they're going to get to the NFL, or they're going to get to, I'm a bowling fan, they're going to get to bowling, whatever it is. And so that has made that show not in small part, of course, to the talents of Tony and Mike and even the people that fill in, like Pablo Torre usually fills in for Wilbon, and Frank Isola usually fills in for Tony. But to think that these guys are going to be this age doing a show that appeals to the audience that ESPN wants, not to mention the numbers they have, really remarkable, and I really applaud them for what they've done, and continue to watch the show. I mean, that's at my age, that's dinner time routine for me. 5:30 is dinner time, and I watch the show in front of on a TV, eating dinner on a TV tray, watching them do the show. Okay, more on the comeback last night of the Minnesota Vikings in Chicago. We'll get to that. Also, more preview of the Commanders as they head to Green Bay on Thursday. It's the Andy Poland Show, ESPN 630. So every once in a while, you're watching or listening to something, and you go, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. And it's always fun to look back Tony Gonzalez, Hall of Fame tight end, Kansas City Chiefs, Atlanta Falcons, maybe the best to ever play the position. He was also a really good college basketball player. And when he was in a contract dispute, this is over 20 years ago, he played summer league with the Miami Heat to kind of like put a little heat, so to speak, no pun intended, or pun intended, on the Kansas City Chiefs. And it worked. But in looking back, he says he could have played in the NBA. Might not have been a superstar in the NBA, maybe not a Hall of Fame player like he was in the NFL, but could have played in the NBA and, maybe made a lot more money. We talk about guys who have that opportunity to either play basketball or football, and I don't think anyone has ever tried to do both. We have had baseball players who have been able to play basketball. Dave DeBusschere, for example, was a pitcher with the Chicago White Sox while he was playing for the Detroit Pistons. And I think there have been a couple of other examples of that. Of course, Deion and Bo Jackson, they both played baseball and football. I don't think that there has been a football player who has also played professional basketball, though he may be. Well, Otto Graham did that, but you have to go way back on that. Otto Graham, who was a Hall of Fame quarterback with the Cleveland Browns, also played in the NBA for a little while. There have been, some chances that football players or vice versa become basketball players. John Havlicek didn't play football at Ohio State, but was a great player in high school and was a great athlete at Ohio State and was drafted by the Cleveland Browns. Or at least got a tryout with the Browns, and they didn't keep him. And he wound up going to the Celtics and becoming one of the greatest players of all time. So it's kind of funny to look at these things and say, what if? But, it's possible Tony Gonzalez could have played in the NBA and not played football at all, made more money, not gotten the fame that he got in football, and would not have gone in the Hall of Fame, but could definitely play at the level of NBA players, which, 2002, he'd been out of basketball for 5 years. He played at Cal, and they made it to the Sweet 16, lost to North Carolina, and then he went on to play in the NFL. But, when he tried out for the Heat, not tried out, but just kind of, did his thing, he'd been out of basketball for 5 years and still had mad skills. We'll get to that coming up. The Monday night game, maybe a little bit of buyers. We'll call this. What would we call exactly what Ben Johnson did? It was kind of a schmucky move, to be honest. This was in January of 2024, and Josh Harris and Mitch Rales were flying to Detroit to interview him about becoming the head coach. They hadn't hired Dan Quinn yet, and while they're in the air, they find out about a tweet that was put out by Ben Johnson. Oh, yeah, I'm staying with the Lions as offensive coordinator to finish the job. Now, there was kind of a revenge factor there for Washington in that finishing the job was put to a screeching halt by Dan Quinn and the Commanders, who went to Detroit as big underdogs and knocked out the Lions in the playoffs. So then Ben Johnson now winds up in Chicago. He's got what is supposed to be a generational quarterback, and he may ultimately be one, but Caleb Williams is not one yet. And as we saw last night, not a great finisher, good starter. He was 10 for 10 in the early part of the game. But if you're watching, Troy Aikman was saying things like, he's missing a lot of guys downfield. He's checking down, and as the game went on, he got worse and worse. They did have an 11-point lead, but who comes in and comes on, I should say, and changes it? It's a guy playing in his first NFL game. J.J. McCarthy, who is in a competitive game for the first time in 609 days. The last time he played a competitive game was January 8th of 2024 when he led Michigan to the national championship. He played in the exhibition season last year, hurt his knee, out for the year, and now comes and makes his first NFL start. Throws a pick six in the first half, but then gets rolling. Had managed only 48 yards passing. They didn't convert a third down until his 13-yard touchdown pass to Justin Jefferson with 12 minutes and 13 seconds left in the game. That cut an 11-point lead to 17-12, and then he threw a touchdown pass and scored himself on a 14-yard run with 2:53 to go as Minnesota came back to win the game in Chicago 27-24. McCarthy completed 13 of 20 passes for 143 yards, became the first quarterback in NFL history to get 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter of his NFL debut. He also joined Steve Young as the only quarterbacks in the last 45 years to overcome double-digit deficits in the fourth quarter of their debut and win. And I might remind you that Steve Young is in the Hall of Fame. Anyway, Jefferson, after the game, after his performance, and he is, I think, the best receiver in the league. He's the highest paid receiver in the league. Showed up with Scott Van Pelt on the postgame show to recap the comeback.
The comeback is really remarkable because we just showed the highlight, and your quarterback's not a rookie, but his first start.
For sure.
It's a struggle.
Yeah.
And there's the pick 6, and you're down 11.
Yeah.
What happened that changed everything for you guys? What was it?
Nothing. Honestly, we kept our head up, we kept our composure, and we kept fighting at the end of the day. We know the guys that we have in our room, the guys that we have on that offense, and it's just all about just going out there and just competing every single play.
JJ told Lisa Salters afterwards, he just mentioned the same thing, belief. How difficult is it to maintain belief in the face of the struggles that are understandable?
Tough. But you got to know adversity is going to hit. You know what I'm saying? Every game is not going to be perfect. That first half was a tough struggle. Us trying to figure out everything. Of course, having JJ as our new quarterback, trying to figure out everything. But that second half, when that locker room told everybody, look, keep our heads up. We're not even down by a lot. We haven't played our best ball, but let's go out there and complete.
Your O-line has added some significant pieces, and they seem to find their footing as well. And when you started to run, all of a sudden, now that play action's a whole lot more effective. How much credit belongs to the men up front that were able to help establish the run, which seemed to unlock a lot?
Tremendous. You know, that's where it all starts at. The O-line is where it starts at. That's where our run game is going to pop off. That's when the passing game is going to pop off. So it's really kudos to the O-line for sure, but also to JP and AJ for running the rock and getting us downfield.
We were talking as we were watching as a group. I was talking with RC, and we were laughing about the idea that there are folks that discount the notion of momentum in life, and that's fine. But if you're in this place, you could feel it on your side. You're nodding your head as you score, and then all of a sudden you score again and get the 2-point conversion. Just describe how different the energy is on your side, because that defense started getting after it as well.
Momentum is a crazy thing.
Isn't it?
It is. And just like you said, coming off of my touchdown, that momentum strike. You know what I'm saying? We got some momentum. We got that juice flowing again. And, of course, our defense went out there and got some couple stops to get us back on that field to, score 21 points in the fourth quarter. Very difficult. We got it done. But, hey, it's definitely kudos to our defense for sure.
Nice little route there, Aaron Jones Sr. A little subtle little shoulder twitch there that gets the opening. He drops it in. And then you know what this is like, right? For a guy to go back to his hometown, and we did the story on Countdown. For those that missed it, when he's a little kid, he comes here in an Urlacher jersey. The very first game he sees is against Minnesota, and Adrian Peterson goes bananas and runs for like 2 1/4 and beats his team and breaks his heart. Now he comes in and then he gets the rushing touchdown to break some little kid's heart. But sorry, it's never personal. Always, it's just business.
Always,
we know what that is.
Always business.
We know what that is. But when you see him go in there and he walks out of this place a winner, what's that like for you all to know that you helped make a man's dream come true?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's definitely something special for sure. To being from this hometown, to come in and to perform like this, very special, man. We're very excited about the poise that he had, the confidence that he carried himself with the entire way, and he led us, in the huddle, talking, making sure that we're on our P's and Q's and we're going out there and playing every single snap, no matter what the score is. But for him to come in that huddle, give us those words of wisdom on the sideline, keeping everybody motivated and keep everybody heads up, that's very big, especially from a rookie quarterback.
He's nothing but 22, but they say he's an old soul, and you can
sure.
feel it to a degree. I loved what you said on Countdown with RC and Swag about when you were a younger receiver, it was hard for you to understand how to be a vocal leader because it wasn't really your role.
Yes.
But now clearly you understand that's what you are as one of, if not the best receivers in this game. What's the message to your group now about, and especially your quarterback, because this is a big night, but it's only the first step in what is a long journey. So what words do you share with your group after this?
So many words, and there's so many things that went well on this field, and there's so many different things that didn't go well on this field. So it's just all about knowing that we're going to go through adversity, knowing that we're going to hit those roadblocks throughout the game sometimes.
Right.
But it's all about keeping our head up, keeping that confidence, keep going every play at a time. And, I mean, it's just great to come in here away to get a victory like this. It's very, very special, man.
I've gotten to know your head coach a little bit, and he just strikes me as such a steady, solid man. I feel like he's so consistent at all times. And, I mean, we don't always talk about football. In fact, we talk about a million other things. But I think that he seems to set a path that would be real easy to follow.
Yeah.
Am I reading that right?
Oh, yeah. And also, he's a great coach. We love him as a coach, you know what I'm saying, as a person.
I guess what I'm asking is how much does the demeanor help the message land with the group when that's sort of the guy that you're taking your P's and Q's from?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes, just like I said, back off him as a person, him as a coach. I mean, seeing the juice that he comes with every single day, being able to connect with the players, have a relationship with the players. We want to fight with him. We want to fight for him out here on this field. And he's not perfect as well. We understand that some play calls might not be the best. We understand that we're not perfect as well. So it's just all about working with each other, understanding each other, and coming out here every single day, even at practice, going to work, coming to work every single day. So it's just great that our whole team came together at the end of this game to not hold our heads down, keep our heads up, and keep fighting.
Any play calls you want me to mention to him that weren't the best? Like I said, I talked to JJ afterwards.
I'm going to tell him myself.
Yeah, you don't need me to be the messenger. I understand.
That's JJ. Justin Jefferson on the other JJ McCarthy. Making his first start with SVP. A lot of initials there. Scott Van Pelt doing the postgame last night in Chicago, where, by the way, season ticket holders got a letter yesterday telling them that, you're not going to be settled in there for too much longer. They're going to build a new stadium in Arlington Heights. Now, this has been in the wind for a long time, but I guess this is the Bears making it official to season ticket holders. They say this is the year to finalize our stadium plan so we can officially bid to host the Super Bowl as soon as 2031. Well, the new stadium is going to be built here in 2030, so there could be some competition for the Super Bowl. I don't know. This is the moment to begin moving forward to that future that we want with us. We want you with us. So it's going to cost a lot more. This movement in Chicago is different than here, just the opposite. They're going from downtown to the suburbs. They have been at Soldier Field permanently since 1971. They used to play games there. Wrigley Field was their home for a long time, but since 71, they have been playing at Soldier Field. Only the Packers, who have played at Lambeau since 57, have spent longer in one place. They can buy their way out of their lease next year for $84 million, according to the Chicago Tribune, which I guess isn't a lot of money anymore. But this is 25 miles away. And they say that the Bears draw over 50% of their season ticket holders from that site. So, within 25 miles of that site. So that's where that's going. I think the bigger issue here is the dome, and the ability to host a Super Bowl is going to be, what they're really after here, and that's going to happen here. With the 65,000. Used to be you had to have an 80,000-seat stadium and be in a warm weather city to host a Super Bowl. That's not the case. Or have a dome, and every once in a while they would give a cold weather city the game. Minnesota's hosted it twice. Detroit's had it a couple of times. But this is where the money is. And what it's going to end, it's going to end, not for Green Bay. I guess they'll be the last to hold on to the idea of the frozen tundra. But these games in Chicago where they're playing them in January and it's, 3 degrees and the wind is blowing and all that. Do you remember 1985 when the Bears won their championship? In fact, they were celebrating the 40th anniversary of that last night when they had the playoff game, not the championship game, but we were playing the New York Giants, and Sean Landeta went back to punt. And when he put the ball in the air to punt it, the wind blew it back, and he whiffed on it. Those kind of things aren't going to happen anymore once they build this new stadium in Arlington Heights. And I think that, a game that you never see this anymore, even on the grass fields, even when it's raining. But you remember you used to see players caked in mud? That's all gone. That's all gone. And we're going to see the disappearance of weather for football. Now, what they find is that when you got a snowy game like in Green Bay or New York, or where else do they have open area stadiums where it's still here. You could have one at Northwest Stadium if they play that late in the season and they're hosting a playoff game. But those things are all going to go away. It's all going to be an indoor sport coming up, I would say, within the next 25, 30 years. Maybe Lambeau Field will stay that way. But, money always rules. And if they find that it's worthwhile to put maybe even just a temporary dome on Lambeau Field, they're going to do it. And these times, they are a-changing. All right, coming up, it was 60 years ago today that we had a perfect game voted the best pitch game in history with maybe inarguably the greatest broadcast of baseball in history. That's coming up next. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Sandy Koufax, who is now 89 years old, you have seen him make occasional appearances either for Major League Baseball or for the Dodgers. Some years ago, he was named one of the 4 greatest living players. He may be the greatest living player now, now that Willie Mays is gone. Even though his career was short, he became the youngest player ever to make the Hall of Fame. He was 35 years old. He had control problems early in his career. I think he played 11 or 12 years, but he was done by the time he was 30 because of elbow problems. Now, today, there would probably be surgery to fix that. But in his last year, when he won 27 games and pitched in the World Series, they got swept by the Orioles in the 66 World Series. He lost his last game to Jim Palmer. He, nowadays they'd be falling all over themselves to find a way to get him to pitch. And he was still effective, though he was pitching in pain. And he said, I don't want to have a situation where I'm older and I don't have use of my arm. And he was left-handed, of course, he can't use his left hand. He didn't want that. So he walked away from the game. He got paid a lot of money to broadcast games on television, but he found that he wanted his privacy more. He didn't like the fact that he was out there in the public anymore and has spent most of his life away from the spotlight. Not that when he would come out, he was difficult. He was a great person to deal with. People really like him, but he said, "This is my life. I don't want to live it in the spotlight." And he's been consistent about that and has done very, very few interviews. So kudos to Sweetie Murdy, who I knew when I was at WFAN when he was an intern. I was actually just about leaving there to come back here and get sports radio started in 92 when he was launching his career at WFAN, and he worked his way up to become the Yankees beat reporter for a number of years, and then that ended at WFAN some years ago, and now he works for MLB.com, and I don't know what he went through. I'm sure this was not an easy thing to do, but he actually landed an interview with Sandy Koufax for a piece that is running today about the 60th anniversary of his 4th no-hitter. It was a perfect game. And on this day in 1965, he became the first pitcher ever to throw 4 no-hitters in a career. Nolan Ryan tied that 10 years later. He got his 4th. And then in 1981, almost exactly 16 years after Koufax got his 4th no-hitter, I was there as Nolan Ryan pitched his 5th no-hitter. But it was not a perfect game. He had, I believe, 4 walks in this game. There was a point in the early going where he had runners on second and third because of walks, and he got out of it, and he pitched a no-hitter. But this was a perfect game pitched by Sandy Koufax 60 years ago. He pitched it, by the way, against Bob Henley, not the same Bob Henley who was the longtime third base coach for the Nationals. He was a pitcher and was pitching that night for the Chicago Cubs. He gave up only 1 hit in the game, but the Dodgers were able to win it thanks to an error, 1-0. So they win the game with 1 hit. To this day, it is the game with the fewest hits ever, only 1 hit in the game. Koufax, of course, perfect, struck out 14 and had pitched at that point just the 6th perfect game since 1900. There have been a number of them since, but at that point, 65 years into the last century, there had been only 5 perfect games pitched. But it's not just the story of the perfect game, which, by the way, was played in 1 hour and 43 minutes. You will hear Vin Scully give the time when this game was going on. It was an 8 o'clock start in New York. So a complete baseball game, 9 innings, completed in 1 hour and 43 minutes. But it is the recording that has survived to this day of Vin Scully calling this game that is looked at as the best piece of broadcast baseball ever. Bob Costas said there have been so many memorable and pitch-perfect Vin Scully calls, but if you had to pick one to impress upon somebody his unique and surpassing talent, his feel for the game, his pace, its rhythm, its history bundled into one, you would choose that half inning. It is the 9th inning at Dodger Stadium on this day, 1965. Sandy Koufax is taking a perfect game into the 8th, and this is Vin Scully setting the stage for what you will hear in a closing call of the greatest, considered to be the greatest half inning of baseball ever called.
3 times in his sensational career has Sandy Koufax walked out to the mound to pitch a fateful 9th, where he turned in a no-hitter. But tonight, September the 9th, 1965, he made the toughest walk of his career, I'm sure, because through 8 innings, he has pitched a perfect game. He has struck out 11. He has retired 24 consecutive batters. And the first man he will look at is catcher Chris Krug, big right-hand hitter. Fly to center, grounded to short. Dick Tracewski is now at second base, and Koufax ready and delivers. Curveball for a strike.
Now, Krug was looking to make up for an error which had allowed the game's only run to score. Lou Johnson had walked, moved to second on a sacrifice bunt, stole third, and then when Krug's throw went into left field, Johnson came home. And Krug, also interviewed for this piece, said, "I wasn't thinking about the perfect game. I was just thinking about being a hitter." Koufax throws 2 quick strikes. Scully says, "You can almost taste the pressure now." Koufax lifted his cap, ran his fingers through his black hair, then pulled the cap down, fussing with the bill. I mean, this is artistry at work from Vin Scully. Koufax says, and in this conversation that he has with Sweeney, he says, the only pressure he was feeling about was winning the game. He said the Dodgers had fallen a half game behind the Giants. At the time, we were in a pennant race. This was September. This was a one-run game, and that was the number one thing at the time. He said, Koufax said in this story that he would go into every game thinking about pitching a perfect game. And he said, as you would go along, you would grudgingly give that up, whether you walked somebody or gave up a hit, but then you'd concentrate on winning the game. So anyway, he manages to get Chris Krug out on a 1-2 pitch, a fastball outside, and a ball 2, and then the 2-2 pitch got him swinging. So he struck out 12 at that point. He's 2 outs away from a perfect game after he gets Krug. Scully, as you heard in the open, he's talking about a perfect game. You know, that's a baseball no-no. You're not supposed to do that. Koufax is asked about that for the story. He says, "I'm afraid I don't believe in that. You know, when you're pitching a no-hitter, the opposing team's third base coach is telling you got a no-hitter. The other team, every time you walk off the mound, they're trying to jinx you. If you pitch a no-hitter, you'll pitch a no-hitter. Doesn't matter what anybody says to you." Right. Okay, so the next hitter is a pinch hitter, Joey Amalfitano. There's 1 out in the 9th inning. Journeyman player. You may remember him as a coach for the Dodgers for a long, long time. First pitch from Koufax was a fastball down the middle. Amalfitano turned to the home plate umpire, Ed Vargo. Hey, Ed, that ball sounded inside to me. And they both laughed. Amalfitano knew how this would end, but Scully kept building up the drama and building up the drama. And then he finally, gets him out. So now there's one out away from the perfect game. And Scully said, I would think that mound at Dodger Stadium right now is the loneliest place in the world. Koufax says now with a laugh, it's pretty hard to be lonely in front of 30,000 people. He's very, self-deprecating in this. Then it comes to the point where there's one more to go. And Harvey Keene, who is a 10-time All-Star, former batting champ, is coming to the plate. Amalfitano has made the second out of the inning. And as he is passing Amalfitano, Harvey Keene, 10-time All-Star, former batting champ, says to Amalfitano, wait for me, I'll be right back. So now here is 2 strikes on Harvey Keene and the great finish by Vin Scully.
It is 9:46 p.m. 2-2 to Harvey Keene. 1 strike away. Sandy into his windup. Here's the pitch. Swung on and missed. A perfect game.
Now there are 38 seconds where Vin Scully lets this breathe. This is not a TV broadcast. This is a radio broadcast 60 years ago today. And Vin Scully, who's famous for this, he's not screaming. He's not yelling about the game. He's not giving you all kinds of statistics. He's letting this breathe. We've just seen baseball history or heard baseball history called beautifully by Scully, and he's not going to ruin it. He's going to let the crowd.
On the scoreboard in right field, it is 9:46 p.m. in the city of the Angels, Los Angeles, California. And a crowd of 29,139 just sitting in to see the only pitcher in baseball history to hurl 4 no-hit, no-run games. He has done it 4 straight years, and now he capped it on his 4th no-hitter. He made it a perfect game. And Sandy Koufax, whose name will always remind you of strikeouts, did it with a flourish. He struck out the last 6 consecutive batters. So when he wrote his name in capital letters in the record books, that K stands out even more than the OUFAX.
That is as good as you can do it. Now, some of the postscript is amazing, too. John Miller, who may be in contention as the second best baseball broadcaster of all time. I mean, everybody has their favorite, but he is among the best. Turns out he was 13 years old and was listening to this game that night. It was a Friday night. He was 13, listening in his room, and he said, when you read it, meaning the text of the call, it reads as if he was sweating blood and tears for hours, getting it just right, but it was extemporaneous as it was happening, just off the top of his head. He said, that's what it takes. That's what it takes it into another realm, past a regular broadcast, into something extraordinary, into a work of art. Joe Davis, who ultimately replaced Vin Scully in 2017, he said it's almost as if it's poetry. He wrote a beautiful baseball poem in real time and covered a moment that I can tell you, being in the chair for some moments, your heart gets racing. It was the perfect storm. It was the perfect game. Voted in 2015, I believe, as the greatest pitch game of all time, with the greatest broadcaster calling it. And it stands up 60 years later as, the greatest call of a baseball game ever. And it is studied, not just in great broadcasting, but in great writing. Just as John Miller says, if it sounds like he had written this out, this script, and had painstakingly written it out, yet he's doing it off the top of his head. And, of course, the baseball game was magnificent, played in 1 hour and 43 minutes. Unbelievable. Great work by Sweeney Murdy. I suggest you read it at MLB.com. Bram is coming up next. I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.